Oh, okay, we got it. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today's May 27th, and today is Madame Lenormand's birthday. My name is Ellie Molina. For those people who are going to be watching this in the future, I'm an intuitive, I'm an educator, I'm untech savvy. So I thank you all for being here and bearing with it. However, I love learning and I also love sharing as much as I learn. So welcome, welcome, welcome to being here. So this is the first of the Intuitive Insights salons that I have planned for this year. And I do an insight salon. It's never been on this platform before. I have done a tribute to Madame Lenormand ever since since May, her birthday, May 27th in 2016. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on this, why I do this. Now, some of you may have read the newsletter. So I had just sold my house in 2016. I lived in Washington State and I had moved into an apartment building. And that one night, right before her birthday, I woke up from a dream, and I don't know if you've ever had any dreams like this. It was the first for me. I woke up with this loud, booming voice in my head telling me, "Your name is Sybil." And it sounded as if I was listening to Darth Vader, James Earl Jones, right? James Earl, yeah. And I was like, "What is this?" And so I grabbed my phone and I looked up Sybil, and whether it was conscious or unconscious, I mean, we remember. I remember back from Homer and the Odysseus. I remember that there were the Sibyls, but in my conscious life, I had totally forgotten about them. And so I did not know that Sybil was the name of a prophet or a seer. So this now freaked me out. And I was like, okay, why did I hear this? And then I scroll down just a little bit more on the phone, and it says, most famous Sibyl in history, Madame Lenormand, known as the Parisian Sibyl. It's like, okay, now it is the day before her that I'm reading on, and it is the day before her birthday. So I'm really intrigued. Now I start reading and I get up, I start reading a little bit about, I started reading a lot about her. And I'm going to share some of the things that I learned. And now I still hadn't really paid attention to much of this until I was on my way out to meet a friend, and I needed to find my car and I needed to grab my car keys. Now, those of you who know me know that I have everything in order in my home. And if you don't know me, this is just what's so. I have everything in order in my home. My keys are always in the same space. My handbags are in the same space. Everything is always in the same space. So I do not need to run around looking for misplaced objects. And so now I went to get my car keys and they weren't there. And I looked and I started, I did my mantra. I now ordain. I find my car keys. I start looking. I start going for my car keys. And then I went back into my handbag and I prick my finger on on a needle in my handbag. Now, this to me was most bizarre because I have never had a needle in my handbag ever since. And there was no reason. There was no clothes that I had purchased and stuck in the handbag. I had no idea why there was a needle in the handbag. But I do remember reading that Madame Lenormand was a seamstress. So this was getting a little freaky for me. And then I just said to her, okay, Madame Lenormand, I get it. If you are here and you're in the room and there's some sort of psychic connection going on, please, I ordain that you help me find my car keys. And for some particular reason, I lifted up one of the big bins where my books were, and under the bin were my car keys. Now, to me, to this day, there's no logical way that these car keys could have ever gotten there. It's not like I dropped my car keys and then put the bins on top of it. The bins were there. I have no idea how that happened. And still today, I don't understand. So it was a turning point for me in terms of my love for this woman and my respect for her and who she was in history. And so since then, I either write a newsletter for her birthday. Then one year I had Mary Greer, who is a tarot expert, and she was on my podcast, Intuitive Insights, and she's pretty much an expert on a lot of Madame Lenormand. So I had her on the podcast that year, and we spoke about Madame Lenormand and her stories, etc., etc. So, if you've never heard of Madame Lenormand, this is an interesting person because she was one of the first oracles. She was so famous that she absolutely, not only did she shape psychic history, she helped to shape the world. So she was highly political. And let's go into my next slide. So she was born in 1772 in Alencon, France, and her full name was Marie Anne Adelaide Normand. And she had a pretty tragic childhood. And what that looked like during her childhood was that both of her parents, oh, this is just who she became later. I just want to let you know. This is Napoleon and Josephine, and she was extremely instrumental in shaping world politics. So what happened is that she was her both her parents died, and her father had remarried, and he left her with a stepmom. And then when the stepmom passed away, the stepfather, because the stepmother had remarried, took her and they brought her to a convent. And she was 6 years old when she arrived at the convent and was learning how to be a seamstress. They kept her at the convent until she prophesied that one of the nuns was going to pass away suddenly. And lo and behold, one of the nuns passed away very suddenly, and people got spooked about little Marie, who was no longer so little. So they sent her away from the convent. And as there's not that much documentation available, but as what happened was that they had sent her away, and she ended up moving in with a woman named Madame Gilbert. Now, Madame Gilbert, at that time, was a fortune teller. So we have to go back now and look at a few things about history in terms of France at that time. So during that time, when little Madame Lenormand, when little Anne or Marie was working with Madame Gilbert, this was highly illegal, and playing cards was even illegal at that time. And so they ended up doing something called cartomancy. And cartomancy is different from tarot reading and fortune telling, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But here she was with Madame Gilbert, and everything was so illegal at that time. And so what we know about it is that she became really good at doing this. And then, since it was illegal, and we do know that, I'll give you a little bit about tarot in a few minutes. We know that it was illegal. The police were always cracking down on this. It was the French Revolution. You know, we had Napoleon. Napoleon was married to Josephine in 1796. And around this time, Lenormand was practicing. She was with Madame Gilbert, and she was already becoming very well known for her accurate readings. And Josephine was known to be interested in esoteric and the occult, and she sought Lenormand. And then she would be working with Madame Lenormand during Napoleon's rise to power. And then the other thing that happened is, since it was illegal in France at that time to be playing cards, even a plain deck of cards was illegal. Um, then one moment, I want to pull my slideshow back. Moments. Playing cards was illegal, and even having tarot cards, of course, was totally illegal. And they didn't have tarot cards, I'm sorry. So they used other cards, and I will show you the cards that they used at that time. Anyway, This was an image drawn from some publication when the police came in and they removed Madame Gilbert and they arrested her, and they took Madame Lenormand and they arrested her. And then history doesn't really go back into what happened to Madame Lenormand. Suddenly, all the focus, I mean, Madame, history doesn't go into Gilbert anymore. They don't really talk about who she was, what she was doing. She kind of disappeared. Some people even speculated that she was just an archetype and that she might not have even existed. But somebody did exist. We do know that. And we do believe that it was this woman named Gilbert. But again, right after their arrests, and they were arrested three times, Gilbert seems to disappear from history as Lenormand begins to take over. Again, here's the image of them. This is from an old image in the 1700s. This is Lenormand getting arrested. So here she had friends in very high places. So the more often that she ends up being arrested, the more notorious she became, the more famous she became, the more sought after she became. She became her best marketer in terms of, I mean, think about it. We're not talking about social media back in the day. We're talking 1796, French Revolution, and everything is word of mouth back then. So, with that being said, again, Madame Lenormand now is reading for Napoleon. She is reading for Josephine. And then we also know that around this, that she had very powerful friends that were there to protect her. She would read for European aristocracy. She read for politicians. Word spread through these elite circles very quickly. The arrests were public. Again, she was released easily, effortlessly, all the time because of her clientele. And then she was known, again, here's where it comes in. She was known as the Sibyl of a very new era. And what happened is that she started to cultivate herself as a dangerous woman with divine knowledge. Okay, so her mystique started to grow, and she did her readings in what was known as a bookshop. So from the outside, it was a bookshop. And then there were those, I just kind of love the idea. We've seen it in movies where they have the secret panel and they would push the secret panel in the bookshop, and then it would open, the doors would open, and then there was the back room. And this is where people came to have their readings. And so just the whole idea of this. So now she is reading for the aristocracy, and she's living this dangerous life of getting arrested, going to jail, reading for Napoleon and all his friends. And then, of course, we know historically that in 1804, he crowns himself as emperor. And then now she is even more sought after. But she's also watched by the authorities. Police are after her, and her clientele starts to grow. Among her clientele was the Empress Josephine, Napoleon, the Tsar Alexander and his family. Robespierre was also there, members of royal courts of Prussia and Russia. One of the things that and then this Talleyrand was one of her confidants, and there that leads to a whole bunch of other speculation. Now, some of the things that she talked about that she had recorded, she was also a very prolific writer. Some of the things that she had said, she predicted that Napoleon the Conqueror will be brought to his knees in the cold. The fire he started will consume him. And then this was interpreted as Napoleon's disastrous invasion of Russia in 1812. And then with Alexander, um, she predicted Tsar Alexander's downfall also. She read that a crowned man of the East shall rise, not through war, but through restoration. And they said, oh, this was the interpretation of the 1815 Congress of Vienna that helped shape post-Napoleonic period. But she also told Alexander that as he became more spiritual and withdrawn, she told him that your crown weighs heavily, not because of war, but because of what you will not admit to yourself. And that was, according to history, that was Alexander's guilt over the role that he played in his father's assassination, and that it was his inner torment which led him down the path of mysticism and religious retreat, etc., etc. Um, and her stories just went on and on. And then one of the other things that I found particularly fascinating is that she became very close friends with Talleyrand, who was he was known to be an enigmatic and diplomat, and he was very cunning. And if you go back and listen to how Talleyrand influenced people during that time, not only it's just incredible. He was such a huge manipulator, and he was a master of diplomacy, and he served under multiple regimes, the Revolution, Napoleon, and the Bourbon Restoration. And he was known for his pragmatism, his secrecy, and his wit. And now he was very close friends with Madame Lenormand. So questions become, hey, did they exchange? She was supposedly she had read for him. Did they also exchange information? Was, like what were the stories behind that? We'll just never know. Um, but she did predict his influence according to stories. It says that Lenormand said that the man with the limp will walk through every regime untouched by fire. And so he had a club foot. And so that again was, her prediction. So again, she had so much influence that it was really quite interesting to see her play through language, manipulating diplomacy, using the divine to direct, political destiny. And then having the front of being a bookseller, having legal protection, therefore avoiding any sort of prosecution or anything like that, and being very privileged to do her psychic work at a time where all of this was so verboten. I mean, it was just not done. All right. This was, you could be hung, killed, whatever. But she always said that, reading cards are like reading pages, and the spread is a sentence. So I am merely reading a book. All right. So I want to do a little side over here and talk about why after her death, she became so famous for her tarot cards. No, they're not her tarot cards, they're for her deck. But the deck that she became famous for was not the deck that she used. She used what were considered regular playing cards at the time. And just going to pull them up for you right now so that you can see what these decks look like. A little bit of back history also. Um, I actually created, so my tech savviness, I created this image using AI. I put everybody together, and they never all, from what we know, they never all got together in the same room. Okay, the Tsar, Napoleon, Talleyrand, and Madame Lenormand, they never all got to, and Josephine, they were never in the same room at the time while she was doing a tarot spread. But I figured, hey, you know what, for the slideshow, let me put the characters all in one room. So all her clientele are in this one room in the back of the bookshop. Anyway, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the about tarot and the cards that they used. So in 1470, the first deck that was actually printed for the public use was the um, Visconti Sforza deck, and that is oh, hold on, that is this deck right here. Let's stop sharing and put me here. And of course, I've got a background now, so I don't know if you can see this. All right. Oh, technology, you do me in over here. Hold on. Hold on. We're leaving my beautiful room and we are going to go to my office. All right. Okay, this is the deck, and that's my room. Okay, so these, this is the deck that was. This is not the original. This is a, this is a whatchamacallit, a reproduction of the Visconti Sforza deck. This was one of the first decks that became public in um 1400. It is actually a very beautiful deck. The size of the cards, for example, are huge compared to, like, if you ever use a tarot deck and you're familiar with the Raider White tech tarot decks, these are absolutely stunning cards. These were the cards that were used originally until like the like 1800s, late 1800s, 1900s, when illustrators started creating different decks. But this was actually the first one for commercial use back in the day. And that is the Visconti Sforza deck. And they're really just very beautiful cards. Okay, so going back to the decks that they used at that time. So all right, these again are the Sforza cards that I just had. These were the cards that Lenormand used. This is what they looked like approximately. They were what we would consider our modern day playing cards, but they weren't. They didn't have all of the numbers. They started around 10, I believe, is what I read. And then they had jacks, kings, and queens. And this was it. This was the deck. And from here, with this, she predicted diplomacy and history and the lives of Robespierre and Napoleon's downfall and Josephine's, whatever, esoteric experiences. So it's really quite interesting. And what we do know is that when people do divination, we really don't need to, it doesn't matter what the decks look like. You could be using this deck or you could be using this deck or no deck at all. They're just a tool to help people to get into their psychic abilities. And then this, if anybody does want to spend some time going into learning about Madame Lenormand's card deck and all of the spreads that have been created under her name, okay, whether they're really hers or not, because according to historical works, she merely used these. This was the deck that she used. All right, a deck that looked like this. And from that, these were born. And again, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. I'll show them to you. This is a reproduction of a deck from 1880. And again, these are the cards that were made in her name. All right. These were not her cards, but these are the cards that have the name Madame Lenormand on them. And this is what they go by, and this is what they look like. And each card has a meaning, and each card, you look it up and it's all full of symbolisms. And so there's multitude of spreads in, I mean, this book, this is the book on, if you want, the book on Lenormand Oracle. So every possible spread that you could imagine. So, and you know what I'm talking about by spreads. You know, when you're learning to do tarot, you put them in a cross, or you put them in a circle, or you lay them one, two, three. And in this book, what you've got over here is countless spreads from up and down, past, inside out, storyboards. Um, it is, it's a mathematical. a piece of art. All right. It's just absolutely fascinating. And then in the back of the book, at the end, at the very end, got a key of all of the symbols. So if you got a seven with a dog, you get to look up the symbolism of a dog and the meaning of the seven. So the book is actually full of symbols. And I will put this down at the end I'm going to repost on YouTube. And at the end, I will have all the links available with everything in here from decks and Madame Lenormand to Mary Greer, the whole nine yards. So these are the decks that she were named. There were so many of them that are named after her, but not but. In the podcast after the podcast where I spoke to Mary Greer, who is an expert with Madame Lenormand's history, Mary said that if you were seriously going to start to learn how to do a Lenormand spread, you do want to work with this particular deck, and this is the deck from 1880. So, and those links will also be those links will be after in the video, at the bottom of the video. Okay, so continuing on. These are the cards that she used. These are this is a more modern reproduction of the cards. And then this is an older reproduction of the cards. And so the rest of the Lenormand story is pretty much history. She lived a very long life. She lived for the times. She lived into her 70s. And then there's a lot of misinformation. She was actually 71 years old when she passed. She was very wealthy when she died. She was respected and she was both infamous. All right. She was infamous in both political circles and in the new emerging esoteric circles. So there was a lot of rumor about Victor Hugo, who was her nephew, and that no, I'm sorry, he was not her nephew. There was all this information. Remember Victor Hugo, author and anyway, Victor Hugo is a famous author right after the revolution, and it was said that Victor Hugo was her nephew and that he ended up inheriting all of her money and her finances. Although he wasn't. It turns out that that was just a legend and not even true. So just FYI about her deck, this particular deck, the Sforza deck, is in the Pierpont Morgan library. And so if anybody ever wants to get down to New York and get to the Pierpont, you can go in there and you can see a few of these decks. Okay, so that is my presentation on Madame Lenormand, and I want to open this up right now to anybody who is interested in or has any questions. And if anybody wants to do since there are so few of us on here, if anybody's interested in doing a Lenormand reading, mind you, I would be using the book, right? Because that's what the interpretations are. I will gladly do a 5 spread for you, which is really super simple. And then I will demonstrate what a 5 spread looks like. So does anybody have any questions about anything? No questions. Anybody curious about anything about this woman that there's so little information, one does need to go digging deeper to find the good stuff. Um, any questions? Anybody interested in any comments about Madame Lenormand? No. Okay. Anybody interested in a quick 5 spread Madame Lenormand card publicly?
Sure, but I wouldn't know what to ask.
Okay. Then how about how about I give you a question right now and we'll ask a 5 spread And the question becomes, what is the next thing that this Zoom user over here named Robin, what is the next thing that Robin needs to do? What does Robin need to do next? How's that?
I like that question. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question? Okay. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, all right, and future viewers. What does Robin need to know? Okay, so we're going to pull out 5 cards. The first card is, well, I'll show it to you as I put them down. The first card is a 31. All right. And mind you, I don't know what these cards mean. I'm going to go look them up. All right. So you can all see this card, right? 31. So what does Robin need to know? The cards are done straight in order. You don't pull them from up and down, in and out. You just take them from the top of the deck and you pull them. The second card is the 9. The 9 of bouquets. I don't know, 9 of flowers. I don't know. All right. And third card is, what is this? Is a 20. Okay. The question remains, what does Robin need to know? Fourth card is a 32. And the final card is 18. All right. What does Robin need to know? Okay, so now we take the Lenormand Oracle book, all right, and we proceed to go to the back of the book to look up all of the things. What does Robin need to know now for going forward in her life? Madame Lenormand, I'm going to channel her right now. Come help me, madam. All right, so here's what we've got going. So this is the situation right now. Okay, so was there a question? Okay, so the situation right now is a 31. So this is a time of confidence and happiness for you. It is a time of vitality and success. It is also a time of consciously being aware and extending charisma. Okay, so beautiful. All right, now that is what's so right now. So let's move into the future. What are the circumstances that we need to know for this going on? Well, that the next card is there will be appreciation for beauty, there will be abundance, and there will be grace. You may receive a gift. All right, what else does Robin need to know? Robin needs to know that there will be social gatherings. You can't make this stuff up, okay? There will be social gatherings, there will be activities outdoors, and there will be trips to the countryside. And what else does Robin need to know right now? Oh, she will work creatively. Her dreams will come true. The unconscious will become conscious, and there will be a lot of honor and respect. And finally, what will be the outcome? Yeah. This is a woman who is trustworthy and loyal, with much friendship, patience, and support.
My Yes. My goodness, Ellie.
Madame Lenormand, right? So, now this is beautiful stuff, okay? You just can't make it up. All right, anybody else want to be daring? And then we'll call it. Anybody else want, yeah, no, yes, no, maybe so. Okay, Jennifer, let's go for it, brave soul. All right. Okay, do you have a question or do you want me to just do the same thing? What does Jennifer need to know?
I love that. Oh, let me see. Can you hear me?
I can.
I would love that question.
You love that question?
Perfect question.
Okay, so here we go. What does Jennifer need to know? All right, Madame Lenormand, this is supposedly your deck. So, I mean, you didn't view it. You were long gone when the deck became available. All right, first card, and I did shuffle. First card is the 16.
Nice.
Second card is the 24. Third card is a 1. Fourth card is 12. And the outcome is 3. Okay. All right, here we go. And if you want, this is really such a fun thing to do, to have this, to have these cards in this book. It's just really fun. Okay. And you don't need to go do this professionally. It's just something that is really a cool thing to do. All right. What does Jennifer need to know? Jennifer needs to know that vision, guidance, inspiration, destiny, improvement, and harmony is here for her now. Jennifer needs to know that love and romance and generosity, affection, and fellow feeling compassion is important for her now. Jennifer needs to know that there's going to be news, announcements, updates, and messages coming.
Excellent.
Jennifer needs to know that there will be excitement and there's going to be word on the street.
Love.
And finally, travel, travel, far seeing, navigation, and wishes come true.
Beautiful.
That's what Jennifer needs to know.
Well, we just finally booked Argentina, so that's done. That was like very recent. So there's the travel.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's very, very awesome. And the other things will all fall into place. All right. Madame Lenormand has guaranteed that for you. All right. So, all right. And I'm just gonna, last card for everybody. This is what do we need to know to end our evening for Madame Lenormand. What we need to know is the 15. Okay, let's see what this says. The 15 is for the end of our evening. This better be good. The 15 for the end of our evening is that we have the bear, strength and power, protecting, and the image of the grandmother. So strength and power, protection, and the image of the grandmother.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Wow.
so what a wonderful way to end. Thank you, Madame Lenormand. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and taking the time to join us. And if you ever do want to have a Madame Lenormand reading, get a deck.
Great.
I just use her. I don't do anything professionally with her. She's just a constant companion, and I just really think she was a very fabulous woman for living in the day that she lived in, having such an influence on statespeople, politicians, and just a little aside, my own person, and I know many of you know this, but back in the day when I did start doing my work, I had a mentor also, and she was during the Reagan administration, and black cars would come pick her up and take her away, and everybody knew where she was going. She worked for a lot of politicians. She worked with the Reagans, and even though it wasn't spoken out loud, she was my mentor. So these were things that were known, and that's so many years ago that it's not a secret that that statespeople still continue to seek out tarot readers and astrologers and psychics. So with that being said, all right, I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and I hope that you enjoyed this little presentation on Madame Lenormand.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
thank you, Ellie. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Okay, good
Bye.
night. Bye-bye.